This video will be about information and how it is presented, how it's done on websites, and a bit of advice for people running websites. Now, what we have here on the screen is a PNG file I made from a PDF file on a website that had way more information than I need because I don't plan on buying a 30-inch diameter piece of steel pipe. If you're not aware of steel pipe and steel tubing, they're made usually but not always in the following way. A sheet of metal of a given thickness is cut a certain length and width, or is a strip that comes out of some machine that presses it that thickness, and it is folded lengthwise around some sort of form or shape, usually called a mandrel, and in many cases is then given a forging together of the edges or welded to form tubing or pipe. In the case of pipe, there doesn't need to be a large range of diameters, and it doesn't need a very large range of metal thicknesses. They're referred to as schedules or gauges or the thickness of the metal. In the case of pipe, you have schedule 5 and 10, then there's 20, 30, then there's 40, and then it skips 50 and goes to 60, then 80, then 100, then 120, 140, 160, and then finally, on a practical level, the maximum thickness you find is extra, extra strong, which isn't a number, but it would be schedule, I guess, 180. But anyway, in the case of these diameters, they have a history with them, but if it says something like 1 inch, it won't be. 3/4 inch has an outer diameter of 1 inch and an inner diameter that is not 3/4 inch. The closest it gets isn't even the standard schedule here, which is 0.8 inches. The extra strong, or schedule 80, comes closest at 0.742, and it's still not 3/4. Tubing, on the other hand, is almost invariably sold at the correct diameter, meaning if it says it's 1 inch, it's referring to it being 1 inch outer diameter. And then from there, usually it's sold mentioning the thickness gauge or schedule, you could call it at that point, of the metal that was used to form it. Tubing almost always is non-seamed. Most pipe you buy, ostensibly it was for gas pipe or whatever material, maybe even water pipe at one point, has usually a seam in it because the seam isn't wanted on the outside. On the inside it's acceptable. That's how it's sold. Tubing, on the other hand, that may be used for roll cages in a car or aircraft usually has to have a uniform thickness, no weak spots, and no asymmetry, so it will be drawn over a mandrel another layer where it's put under pressure and made to a precise thickness and consistency. Now, this has the effect of making drawn over metal or drawn over mandrel tubing usually have the ability to have lots of extra thicknesses. And this saves weight, especially if you're in the aircraft industry. Instead of having maybe half a dozen thicknesses, or in this case, really much less than that, you'll have many, many more. So let's look at that. This is 4130 chrome alloy or chromalloy or just, chrome moly or just moly steel. And it has lots of incrementations between them, including not skipping the 1 1/8 and just, like the previous pipe, it'll have 1 inch and 1 1/4. This has 1 1/8. There can even be even finer grain detail between them. Instead of just 3/8 and ½ inch and that sort of thing, you'll have these other diameters. And as I mentioned, if it says that it's 1 inch outer diameter, it actually means it's 1 inch, or at least very close. Now, let's look at this list here. While it seems rather messy, there is a rationale to it. Here's the 3/16, and it has 0.035 wall thickness. So does this stuff that's 9/16. They keep reusing the same metal thicknesses for various thicknesses over here. Like there's 0.95. Here's 0.95 here. Now, you might be wondering, well, why am I doing this video? Well, I want to present to you what would happen if we looked this kind of thing up and found a website that had more information. This looks like it's really busy, and it's only covering to 2.5 inches down to 3/16. So let's go on. Now, this is a file I made it's a text file that I made that contains a bunch of information from a website that had a full collection of information about all the different types. Now, it's a text file, a TXT file, and when you throw it in a web browser, it word wraps it and messes it up. So let's zoom out a little bit to get them lined up. So that's how much data is in the page. And we'd have to, if we made it big enough to read properly, it's not readable at this point, we would have to scroll right to left. Now let's look at it when I just rename the text file to HTML. Now it actually looks the way it's supposed to, and we can scroll left to right. The power of having a formatted text file can be extended even further, and I should point out that this is literally just an industry standard table of the diameters on the inside, diameters on the outside, and the metal thicknesses as gauge and wall thickness. Same thing. Now, the thing about this is you can see that there's a lot more of a choice here, to the point that it's overwhelming. But all I have to do is hit the F3 button, and I can search up the metal tubing that is ostensibly 0.73 inches inner diameter. I can just look it up. It's not as convenient as I'd like, but it's pretty good. And I made this by cutting and pasting a website that did a much better job than I'm going to show you in a minute. Now, again, this isn't really HTML. This is just a text file where I just told it to lie about being a web page. So let's move on. This is the file I stole to create it. Now, you may have noticed, first of all, it actually fits the page, and now I scroll up and down. Number one. Number two, everything's formatted really neatly. I didn't have to insert any extra zeros in to line it up. This one includes them, but this was formatted in a spreadsheet-like way, which makes it a lot easier to look things up. Now, see how wide it is and see the sizes of everything. Okay? And I'm going to hit View, Zoom, Actual Size to prove that it's the actual size. Now I'm going to show you where I got this from. This website sticks margins on the left and the right and jams in an extra thing in here that is absolutely not really necessary and ends up hiding half of the data. Now, when I first saw this, I thought they only had just the thicker metal varieties, which I've seen on some sites. But I noticed the entire top row said NA for quarter-inch tubing. So I did this. Oh, there's the rest of the table. What happened is that they formatted the page and ruined everybody's opportunity to see over half of their stock. They kind of screwed themselves. Now, again, they put a margin on the left and right, stuck in a request a quote, which is kind of cute. It kind of rolls off the tongue. And the tubing size chart, which is the only purpose for this page, was defeated by having half the data missing and hiding the thing to show you that way at the bottom. That's the default behavior for this particular table, but it shouldn't be able to do that. Now I'm going to show you this page. Well, okay, this is wider. Scrolling up and down is, oh wow, they made it to where we have to still scroll to left or right. Not only did they do that, they took the part where it shows the thickness of the metal or the gauge number and made it a completely separate one instead of just making it part of this one. Now, there may have been some rationale to it, but it makes it to where I cannot, for the life of me, line this up and see what they're talking about. That whole reason for this lineup is supposed to be so I can figure out the metal gauge. And it gets out of synchronization a great deal over here. Okay. Now I'm going to show you a page that did this right. This page has the request a quote over here. Well, they call it a quick quote. And they stuck the entire table here and scrunched up a bit, but it has all the data. I don't have to scroll. And if I hit F3 on my keyboard, I can search for the 0.73 inner diameter tubing I was actually looking for. And it includes a couple of other features. You can say, I don't want you to show me anything other than the 7/8 inch tubing, or the 1 inch tubing, or whatever. It also lets me pick specific thicknesses. Like I could say, give me the heavy stuff. And it has most of it missing, but the heavy stuff is used, let's say, at 7/8 inch all the way up to 5 1/4. Or just see all of them. And the only thing missing is for it to have a sort by inner diameter, which would probably not work very well. So this is probably about as good as a page can get. Now I want to point out that all of the pages I just showed you have almost exactly the same data. One of them is missing one of the thicknesses or missing maybe everything after 4 inches, but the fact is that it's pretty much the same data, which is the reason I needed to find some sort of universal version. Originally, I had this, and that's not good enough. Now, this one includes 1/4 inch and 3/16. And this one only goes 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch. This one, if we scroll down, 1/4 inch, and again, 1/4 inch. It doesn't, excuse me, I have to scroll over to the left, badly made page. Okay, this doesn't even include the 1/4 inch, actually. It's 1/2 inch and 3/8. And again, 1/4 inch. And again, I need one that has the 3/16, but that, that's pretty good. We got most of the data there. So, of course, I'm going to steal this. Now, there's 2 ways of doing it. This is the PNG version of it, as it is over here. I just copied it by screen grabbing it, making it PNG. That's useful, but I can't search a picture. The other one is to right-click up here, inspect element, and then when you get there, you look for the part that says, if you can get this opened up properly, table right here, product table. And it's a table page. And if I right-click, edit as HTML, I can cut and paste the whole thing and make my own version of it, which is what I did. Now, this is the steel tubing PNG picture again. This one is badly formatted, but I was able to steal it. And this is what I was able to do by cutting and pasting the HTML itself. It takes up much less space because it's just a text file. I saved it as table 3 HTML, or HTM. And I did an edit where I included zeros in front, because if I don't do that, look right here at this. It makes it to where it's kind of not the same formatting. It's harder to read for me, so I prefer it this way. I did a search and replace for everything that had that entry and put in the 0 where it belonged. Now, why am I doing this video? Number one, I want to congratulate USA Industries Incorporated.com for doing a very good job not compromising and giving us a table. Next, thank you for letting me steal it. And next, the reason we use the internet is to get information that is easily found, that is searchable, that has everything formatted correctly. The only thing I've added to this is sticking a 0 in front of the things that don't have the 0 and making sure that I copied the good version someone else did. Thank you very much for the work you did, whoever it is. The next thing is the other purpose for the video. This page, even though I don't like its formatting and makes it too small, it did a good job presenting the information and convinced me that they have a wide variety of selection. This company convinced me that somebody made a mistake that's probably costing them half their business. And this one convinced me that someone did not understand the whole point of a spreadsheet or a table. And it's poorly done, and it makes this page unusable. The point to this video, if you're curious, and the reason I did it. Thank you to the person who made the table. Next, there are industry standard tables for anything you want to find for almost any product. Next, the one that has the most entries doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best one, but this is pretty close, the best one. And the next thing is, if you're trying to sell something on the internet, provide people all the information you know they're going to ask questions about, and don't tease them or demand that they call you on the phone or whatever. Your goal is to have someone only call you when they want you to take down their credit card and send them the stuff in the mail or whatever. And shout out to the website that did this. The next thing is, when I'm trying to look up information on the internet, having it presented in an extremely digestible form that I can just literally steal is awesome. But the fact that I can just say, yeah, go to this page and there it is. I can also compact this using an archive and make it impossible to erase, or just leave it on my web page. This is what the internet's about. Sharing data, getting information, getting consistent information. This is the consistent chart, and that's why I'm presenting you the nominal tube dimensions chart using Birmingham wire gauge for the thickness of the metal, aka wall thickness and or schedule, YouTube video from USA Industries Incorporated. Even though this is a copy of data that everybody else has, they did it right. And this was all just from first page looking up, trying to find a table like this. And I only found one website on page 1 of all of the ones on Google that worked. And this is it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.